The hum of the airplane engines was a comforting background noise as I moved through the cabin of Pacific Airlines Flight 739. The pre-flight routine was a well-oiled machine for me, checking seat belts, ensuring overhead compartments were secured, and making small talk with passengers. It was a routine I had performed countless times, but today something felt different. As I made my way down the aisle, I noticed a young girl seated with her father. Her name was Lily, and she was about 7 years old. She had delicate features framed by golden curls and wore a bright pink dress that seemed incongruous with her subdued demeanor. While the other children on board were excited or asleep, Lily appeared tense and unsettled. "Hi there," I said with a warm smile as I approached them. Her father, a man in his early 30s, was absorbed in his phone, barely acknowledging my presence. Lily looked up at me with wide, anxious eyes. "Is everything all right?" I asked, crouching down to her level. Lily hesitated before nodding slightly, though her eyes betrayed her discomfort. "I'm okay," she murmured, but her voice was so small it was barely audible over the sound of the plane's engines. I noticed her father barely glanced up, still engrossed in whatever was on his screen. I could sense that Lily was trying to convey something more than just the usual pre-flight jitters. As I moved down the aisle, I saw her looking around anxiously and then back at her father, who remained oblivious. The plane began its ascent, and I continued my checks, but I couldn't shake the image of Lily's anxious face. As the seatbelt sign dinged off, I decided to make a quick detour to see if I could learn more about her situation. "Excuse me, sir," I said, approaching Lily's father again. "Would you like a drink or anything else?" He looked up briefly, his eyes glazed over. "Just a water, please." I nodded and moved towards the galley, but not before catching another glimpse of Lily. She seemed to be on the verge of tears, her small hands fidgeting with her seatbelt. Once in the galley, I turned to Emma, one of my fellow flight attendants, who was busy preparing refreshments. "Emma, can you come here for a moment?" I asked in a low voice. Emma raised an eyebrow and walked over. "What's up?" I glanced towards Lily and her father discreetly. "There's something odd about that little girl in seat 24B. She's been acting really anxious. Her father's completely absorbed in his phone, and she keeps looking around as if she's searching for help." Emma followed my gaze and frowned. "You think something's wrong?" "I don't know for sure, but it doesn't feel right. I'm going to keep an eye on her. If you notice anything unusual, let me know. We might need to come up with a plan to keep her safe without alarming her father." Emma nodded, her face serious. "Got it. I'll keep an eye out." I returned to my duties, but my thoughts were firmly fixed on Lily. The usual calm of the flight seemed to be overshadowed by an unsettling feeling. I resolved to keep a close watch on her and to be prepared for any sign that might confirm my growing concern. The safety of a child was not something to take lightly, and I knew I had to be vigilant. As the flight progressed, my attention remained anchored on Lily. The plane had settled into its cruising altitude, and the cabin noise had softened to a gentle hum. The rhythm of the aircraft seemed to lull many passengers into relaxation, but not Lily. Her anxiety was palpable. I was making my rounds, offering refreshments, and checking in with passengers, but my eyes kept drifting back to seat 24B. Lily's father was still glued to his phone, his focus unwavering. Lily, however, appeared increasingly distressed. "Hi, Lily," I said as I approached her seat again, trying to keep my tone light and reassuring. "How are you doing?" She looked up at me, her eyes wide and filled with worry. "I'm okay," she whispered, but there was a tremor in her voice. I noticed her glancing around nervously, as if seeking someone's attention. It was then that she subtly raised her hand, making a small, almost imperceptible signal. Her fingers moved slightly, not in a way that was obvious but enough to be noticed by someone paying close attention. It was a gesture I recognized from my training, a silent plea for help. I knelt down beside her seat, careful not to draw her father's attention. "Is there something you need?" I asked softly, Lily's eyes flickered with relief, but she hesitated before speaking. Can I talk to you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I glanced at her father, who remained absorbed in his phone, and then back at Lily. "Of course," I said, leaning closer. "What's going on?" She glanced around again, making sure no one was watching. "I'm scared," she said quietly. "I don't want to be with my dad. He's not nice. He keeps looking at his phone and won't talk to me." My heart sank. I could see the fear in her eyes and the desperation in her tone. "It's okay, Lily. You're safe here. Can you tell me why you're scared?" Lily nodded, her small hands clenching the edge of her seat. "I saw him talking to someone before we got on the plane. He said something about needing to get me somewhere. I don't want to go there. I want to be with my mom." I felt a surge of concern and resolve. "You did the right thing by telling me. I'm going to make sure you're safe. I'll talk to your dad and see if I can help." Lily gave me a small, grateful smile, but her fear was still evident. "Thank you." I straightened up and walked back to the galley, where Emma was preparing for the meal service. I took a deep breath before speaking. "Emma, I think we have a situation." Lily, the little girl in 24B, signaled me for help. "She says her father is not treating her well, and that she's scared." Emma's eyes widened. "What do we do?" "We need to be discreet," I said, lowering my voice. "I think we should separate her from her father during disembarkation. I'll need to contact the captain and make sure the police are waiting for us when we land." Emma nodded, her face serious. "I'll keep an eye on her and help coordinate the plan. We'll need to act fast, but carefully." I gave her a reassuring nod, then took a moment to calm my racing thoughts. The well-being of a child was paramount, and I was determined to ensure that Lily's silent plea for help would lead to her safety. As the flight continued, I stayed vigilant, my focus never straying far from Lily. I hoped that our plan would unfold smoothly, and that Lily's fears would soon be replaced with relief. The mid-flight lull was deceptive. Despite the calm atmosphere in the cabin, my mind raced as I considered how best to handle the delicate situation with Lily and her father. The hum of the engines and the occasional chatter of passengers were a stark contrast to the urgency of the plan I needed to formulate. Emma and I convened in the galley, away from prying eyes. I took out my tablet to make sure the captain was informed and the necessary authorities were in the loop. Emma and I needed to devise a strategy that would ensure Lily's safety while minimizing disruption and avoiding alerting her father. "All right, here's the plan," I began, looking at Emma with a sense of determination. "We need to create a distraction during disembarkation to separate Lily from her father. The priority is to get her safely away from him and into the hands of authorities who can help her." Emma nodded, her brow furrowed with concentration. "How do we manage that without him noticing?" "We can use the pre-landing service as a cover," I suggested. "I'll make an announcement about a final cabin check for any remaining items. It'll give us an excuse to gather everyone's attention. Meanwhile, you'll need to ensure that Lily is safely escorted to the front of the plane." Emma's eyes widened. "And how do we get her to the front without her father noticing?" "I'll keep him occupied," I explained. "I'll engage him in conversation about an issue with his seat or another minor problem. It'll give you the opportunity to subtly guide Lily toward the front, where I'll make sure she's met by the police." Emma's expression was one of focused resolve. "Sounds like a solid plan. I'll make sure Lily stays calm and gets to the front. What about after she's separated? Once she's with the police, they'll handle the rest," I said. "Our role is to ensure she's safely away from her father. I'll also make sure to alert the cabin crew to be on standby for any additional assistance." Emma took a deep breath and nodded. "Got it. I'll start preparing for the distraction. Do you need any help with the announcement or keeping her father occupied?" "I'll handle the announcement," I assured her. "Just focus on keeping Lily calm and ensuring she reaches the front." With our plan set, We both returned to our respective tasks. I took a moment to check in with the captain, relaying the situation and confirming that the authorities would be waiting for us upon arrival. I could see the seriousness in his eyes as he acknowledged the gravity of the situation and promised his full cooperation. As I walked back down the aisle to make the final announcement, I spotted Lily's father still absorbed in his phone, oblivious to the carefully orchestrated plan unfolding around him. My heart pounded with a mix of apprehension and resolve. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?" I said into the intercom, my voice steady but firm. "As we approach our destination, we'll be conducting a final check of the cabin. Please make sure you have all your personal belongings with you, and let us know if there's anything we can assist you with." The announcement had the desired effect of drawing the passengers' attention. Emma moved with purpose toward Lily's seat, her expression calm and reassuring. She leaned down to speak with Lily, who looked up at her with a mixture of hope and fear. "You're doing great, Lily," Emma said softly. "We're going to get you to a safe place. Follow me, and we'll make sure everything's all right." Lily nodded, her small hand gripping Emma's reassuringly. As Emma guided her toward the front of the plane, I made my way back to Lily's father. "Excuse me, sir," I said, trying to sound as casual as possible. "We've had a minor issue with your seat. Could you please step into the galley while we resolve it?" He looked up from his phone, his expression puzzled. "What's the problem?" "It's just a precaution," I explained smoothly. "It won't take long. Please follow me." As he followed me toward the galley, I stole a glance at Emma, who had successfully guided Lily to the front of the plane. Relief washed over me as I saw the police officers making their way toward her. The plan was in motion. Now, it was a matter of keeping the situation under control until we landed and ensured Lily's safety. The final descent was approaching, and the cabin was filled with the familiar sounds of seatbelt signs clicking and the low murmurs of passengers preparing for arrival. My pulse quickened as I kept an eye on Lily's father, who was now seated in the galley area, looking increasingly impatient. I joined Emma in the front of the plane, where Lily was now being comforted by the police officers who had just arrived. Despite her brave face, it was clear Lily was feeling the weight of the situation. Emma, ever the calming presence, knelt beside her and spoke softly. "You're doing so well, Lily," Emma said gently. "We're almost there. Just a little longer, and you'll be with your mom." Lily nodded, but her eyes were filled with a mix of anxiety and exhaustion. I could see the tension in her small frame and knew that our job wasn't done yet. The next challenge was ensuring that the separation between Lily and her father went off without a hitch. I glanced at the police officers, who were maintaining a professional but reassuring demeanor. Their presence added an extra layer of security, but it was still crucial that everything proceeded smoothly during the disembarkation process. The minutes dragged on as the plane made its final approach. I could see the passengers beginning to gather their belongings, and the flight attendants were preparing for the usual post-landing duties. I kept my focus on Lily's father, who was growing more restless. "Why are we still waiting?" he asked me, his voice tinged with irritation. "What's taking so long?" I forced a reassuring smile. "We're just completing a final inspection to make sure everything's in order. It's a routine procedure." He glanced around, clearly agitated. "I have an important meeting. Can't we speed this up?" "I understand, sir," I said, trying to keep my tone even. "We're working as quickly as possible. I'll let you know as soon as we're ready to disembark." As I spoke, I caught Emma's eye. She gave me a subtle nod, indicating that Lily was ready, and the police were prepared for the moment we landed. I could see the tension in her face, reflecting my own. A few minutes later, the plane touched down with a slight jolt, and the cabin lights flickered on to signal that it was time to disembark. The familiar sound of the seatbelt sign being switched off was both a relief and a signal that the operation was about to unfold. I stepped to the intercom and made the final announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've just landed. Please remain seated until the seatbelt sign has been turned off and we're ready for you to disembark. We appreciate your patience. The cabin buzzed with activity as passengers started to stand and retrieve their belongings. I made my way back to the galley, where Lily's father was now standing, impatiently shifting from foot to foot. "Sir, if you could please follow me," I said, maintaining a polite but firm tone. "We need to conduct a quick check of your seat area before you leave." "Seriously," he snapped. "This is ridiculous. I need to get going." "I assure you it's just a quick check," I said, trying to calm him. "Please cooperate. We'll get you on your way as soon as possible." As he followed me back toward the front of the plane, I could see Emma discreetly guiding Lily and the police officers toward the front door of the jet bridge. I held my breath, watching as the process unfolded. Lily's father was visibly frustrated, but he had no idea what was truly happening. I made sure to keep him occupied with minor questions and concerns about his seat, giving Emma and the police officers the time they needed to ensure Lily's safety. A few tense minutes passed, each one feeling like an eternity. Finally, Emma signaled me with a slight wave, indicating that Lily was safely separated and in the hands of the authorities. I let out a sigh of relief and turned my attention back to the situation at hand. "Sir, we're almost finished here," I said, my voice steady. "You'll be able to leave shortly." His frustration was palpable, but he had no choice but to wait. The disembarkation process was now in full swing, and I could see the police officers leading Lily down the jet bridge, with Emma walking beside her to ensure everything went smoothly. As I watched the scene unfold, I felt a mix of pride and relief. The plan had worked, and Lily was finally safe. Now, it was up to the authorities to handle the rest, but I couldn't shake the feeling of accomplishment and the weight of responsibility that had accompanied this intense, high-stakes situation. The plane had just come to a halt at the gate, and the familiar hum of the cabin slowly faded as the passengers began to gather their belongings. I could feel the mounting tension as we prepared for the crucial moment. Emma and I exchanged glances, a silent agreement that now was the time to set our plan into motion. I walked down the aisle, trying to maintain an air of normalcy despite the gravity of the situation. My eyes were constantly darting towards Lily's father, who was seated in the aisle seat, tapping away impatiently on his phone. I could see his irritation growing as he waited for the cabin doors to open. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've landed and are currently waiting for our gate to become available. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened," I announced over the intercom, my voice calm but firm. "Seriously, this is unbelievable," Lily's father muttered loudly to the person next to him. "How long is this going to take?" I approached him with a polite smile, trying to placate his frustration. "I understand it's frustrating, sir. Unfortunately, these things are out of our control. Please bear with us a little longer." As I spoke, I noticed Emma making her way toward the galley. She was preparing to execute our distraction plan. I gave her a subtle nod, signaling that everything was set. Emma and I had decided on a distraction that would draw Lily's father's attention away from the unfolding events. Emma began to pretend to have a minor issue with the beverage cart, loudly exclaiming over the intercom about a spill and the need for immediate assistance. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the inconvenience." Emma's voice crackled through the intercom. "We've had a minor spill in the galley and need to address it before we can proceed with disembarkation. We appreciate your patience." As Emma executed the plan, I watched as the passengers reacted with curiosity and mild irritation. Lily's father, now visibly agitated, stood up to get a better view of what was happening. He started moving toward the galley, momentarily distracted by the commotion. "Seriously, what's going on?" he asked, his voice rising. "Why are we being held up?" I stepped in front of him, trying to redirect his focus. "Sir, if you could please stay seated for a moment longer. We're handling the situation as quickly as possible." "I don't have time for this," he snapped, pushing past me toward the galley. Emma was expertly handling the situation, creating an aura of chaos around the cart. "Excuse me, could someone please help me with this?" she called out, drawing more attention to the issue. Lily's father was now fully engrossed in the scene, his frustration momentarily overshadowed by the distraction. With his attention diverted, I turned my focus back to Lily, who was being carefully guided by the police officers towards the jet bridge. I kept an eye on the timing, watching as the police officers and Emma maneuvered Lily through the narrow passage leading to the terminal. The distraction was working perfectly. Lily's father was still occupied with the commotion in the galley, completely unaware of what was happening. As the last of the passengers began to disembark, I moved to block the aisle, ensuring no one could pass until the police had finished their work. I kept a calm demeanor, trying to maintain the appearance of normalcy despite the underlying tension. "Sir, if you could return to your seat for a moment," I said, maintaining a polite but firm tone. "We're almost done with the situation in the galley." His frustration was evident as he grumbled and reluctantly made his way back to his seat. "This is ridiculous. I'm missing my meeting because of this." I offered a sympathetic smile, though my heart was racing. "I apologize for the inconvenience. We're doing everything we can to expedite the process." As the final passengers disembarked, Emma reappeared with a look of relief. She gave me a quick thumbs up, signaling that Lily and the police were safely out of the plane. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, knowing that the most critical part of our plan had succeeded. "Great job, Emma," I said quietly as I joined her. Everything went according to plan. Emma smiled, though her eyes still held a trace of tension. "Thanks, Michael. I'm just glad Lily's safe." With the distraction complete, and Lily's father still oblivious to what had transpired, we began the final stages of clearing the cabin. My thoughts were already on the next steps, ensuring Lily's safety and supporting her through this unsettling experience. As we completed our duties and prepared to leave the plane, I couldn't help but feel a profound sense of relief and accomplishment. The distraction had worked perfectly, and now Lily was on her way to safety, and hopefully, to a reunion with her mother. The jet bridge was bustling with activity as passengers disembarked, but my focus was entirely on the situation at hand. I watched as Lily, flanked by police officers, made her way down the bridge toward the terminal. Her small frame was a poignant contrast to the officers' imposing figures. I could see her nervousness, her eyes darting around as if searching for something familiar. Lily's father, still caught up in the distraction from the galley incident, had finally managed to exit the plane. His face was flushed with frustration as he noticed the unusual commotion in the terminal. Emma and I had arranged for a discreet but effective setup to ensure that Lily's father would be unable to leave before the police intervened. "Sir, can you please remain where you are?" one of the officers instructed firmly as Lily's father approached the scene. "Why? What's going on?" Lily's father demanded, his irritation growing. "I need to get to my meeting." "This is absurd." The officer, a tall woman with an authoritative air, maintained her composure. "We're handling a situation with your daughter. Please stay calm and wait for further instructions." Lily's father's eyes widened with confusion. "What do you mean, handling a situation?" "Lily's right here with me. Why are you stopping me?" Before he could react further, I stepped forward, keeping my tone professional and reassuring. "Sir, we have reason to believe that Lily may be in danger. We need to ask you some questions and ensure everything is all right." Lily's father's face twisted in disbelief. "Danger? This is ridiculous. Lily is fine. She's right here." Lily, clutching her stuffed bunny tightly, looked up at the officers with wide, fearful eyes. Her father's denial was palpable, but she remained silent, her body trembling slightly. The officers led Lily to a quieter corner of the terminal, while another officer engaged Lily's father in conversation. The tension was thick as I watched the scene unfold. The officer in charge, a man with a calm demeanor, began questioning Lily's father. "Sir, we have received reports of concerning behavior. We need to verify some information with you. Please remain calm and cooperate," the officer said. Lily's father's frustration boiled over. "This is an outrage. I have a right to know what's happening. As the conversation continued, Lily's father grew increasingly agitated. He started to raise his voice, attracting the attention of other passengers. This is harassment. I'm missing an important meeting, and now you're accusing me of something ridiculous. Emma, who had joined me at the edge of the scene, whispered, "Michael, is everything under control?" I nodded, though the situation was far from resolved. Yes, it's tense, but the officers are handling it. Lily's safe, and that's what matters. Suddenly, Lily's father made a desperate move. He tried to push past the officers, aiming to reach Lily. "Let me go. I need to get to my daughter." One of the officers quickly stepped in, blocking his path. "Sir, you need to calm down. If you continue to resist, we will be forced to restrain you." Lily's father's face was a mixture of panic and anger. "I'm not going to let you keep me from my daughter. This is all a mistake." In the midst of the chaos, I could see Lily's eyes locking onto her father's, a mixture of fear and relief. Her gaze was pleading, as if begging for someone to protect her. The officers began to secure the area, and one of them moved to call for additional support. "Please, just let me talk to her," Lily's father pleaded, his voice breaking. The officer in charge, maintaining a stern yet compassionate tone, said, "Sir, we need to ensure that Lily is safe. If you cooperate, we can resolve this matter quickly." Lily's father reluctantly complied, though his agitation was evident. He stood back, his eyes constantly darting towards Lily, who was now seated with another officer, her small frame visibly shaking. I approached Lily, crouching down to her level. "Lily, you're safe now. The officers are here to help. Can you tell me what happened?" Lily looked up at me, her voice barely a whisper. I was scared. Daddy was saying things. He didn't want me to talk to anyone." I nodded, trying to provide reassurance. "You did the right thing by reaching out. We're going to make sure you're okay and get you back to your mom." As the confrontation continued, more officers arrived to take control of the situation. Lily's father was eventually restrained and led away, his protests echoing through the terminal. Lily's face was a mix of relief and exhaustion as she watched her father being taken away. Emma stood by my side, her expression a mix of concern and relief. "I can't believe it's finally over." I nodded, feeling a sense of accomplishment mixed with empathy. "Yes, but Lily's journey isn't over yet. We need to make sure she's comfortable and get her to her mother." As the situation began to calm, I watched as Lily was escorted to a waiting area where her mother, who had arrived in a rush, was anxiously waiting. The reunion was emotional, filled with tears and heartfelt embraces. I felt a profound sense of satisfaction, knowing that Lily was finally safe and back with her family. The confrontation had been intense, but seeing Lily's relief and the joy of her reunion with her mother made every moment of the ordeal worthwhile. The bustling terminal was now quieter, the commotion having settled into a somber calm. Lily's mother, visibly distraught and tearful, stood near the entrance to the waiting area, her eyes scanning the crowd with a mixture of fear and hope. She was flanked by two officers who had been keeping her updated on the situation. As Lily was led towards the waiting area by an officer, I could see her mother's face light up with a mix of relief and overwhelming emotion. Lily, her small form still trembling, was being carefully guided by the officer, her eyes darting around until they finally settled on her mother. The moment their eyes met, Lily's mother let out a choked sob and rushed forward. "Lily, oh my God, Lily." Her voice broke as she reached out to her daughter. Lily, her face brightening with tears, ran into her mother's open arms. "Mommy," she cried, her voice muffled against her mother's shoulder. The embrace was tight and filled with raw emotion, as if neither wanted to let go. The mother's tears flowed freely as she held Lily close, her hands stroking her daughter's hair. "I was so scared," she whispered through her sobs. "I thought I'd lost you." Lily pulled back slightly, looking up at her mother with tear-filled eyes. I was scared too. Mommy, Daddy, he was mean, and I didn't know what to do. Lily's mother held her daughter's face gently in her hands, her fingers brushing away the tears. You did the right thing, sweetie. You're so brave. I watched the emotional reunion from a respectful distance, my heart swelling with compassion. Emma, standing beside me, gave me a nod of approval. You did good, Michael. It's over now. One of the officers approached us, his expression softening. Thank you both for your quick thinking. It's been a tough situation, but thanks to your vigilance, Lily is safe and reunited with her mother. I nodded, feeling a sense of fulfillment. I'm just glad we could help. I'm sure this is a huge relief for her. As Lily's mother continued to hold her daughter, the officer in charge approached, gently informing them of the next steps. We need to take a statement from both of you. It won't take long, and then you'll be free to go. Lily's mother nodded, still holding Lily close. Of course. Just give us a moment. Lily, now calmer but still visibly shaken, glanced at me with gratitude. Thank you, mister. You helped me. I smiled warmly at her. You don't have to thank me, Lily. You were very brave. I'm just glad you're safe. As Lily's mother walked towards the officer to provide her statement, Lily remained close by, her hand securely grasping her mother's. I could see the relief in both their faces, the profound bond of mother and daughter reaffirmed. Emma and I exchanged a final look of mutual satisfaction. Well, that's it for us, Emma said softly. Our job here is done. I nodded, feeling the weight of the day lift. Yes, it is. It's moments like these that make everything worthwhile. As we prepared to leave, I took one last look at Lily and her mother. They were seated together, the tension of the past hours slowly dissipating as they began to find solace in each other's presence. Lily's mother had finally regained her composure, her protective arm draped around her daughter, ensuring that Lily felt safe and loved. With a deep breath, I walked towards the crew room, reflecting on the events of the day. The emotional reunion had been a powerful reminder of the importance of vigilance and compassion in our roles as flight attendants. As I approached the crew room, Emma followed, both of us feeling a deep sense of accomplishment and relief. Ready for a break? Emma asked, her tone lighter. Definitely, I replied. But I'll carry the memory of today with me for a long time. We entered the crew room, where the rest of the team awaited, eager to hear about the resolution. The day had been challenging, but the outcome, seeing Lily safe and reunited with her mother, made every effort worth it.